Hey there, imagine this. You're walking through a prehistoric forest where everything feels too big. The trees are so tall you have to lean your head back just to see their crowns. Mist drifts between the trunks. Insects buzz. Bird-like calls echo overhead. And then, an entire walking apartment block steps into your path. A ridiculously long neck pushes through the leaves, ending in a tiny head that calmly strips branches like it owns an endless salad bar. That is a sauropod, one of the long-necked giants that ruled Earth for tens of millions of years. The scene is majestic and ridiculous. Why did land animals get that big instead of stopping at something cow-sized and practical? To answer that, we have to meet the true celebrities of the dinosaur age, the sauropods. Those long-necked, four-legged titans like Brachiosaurus, Diplodocus, Argentinosaurus, and Patagotitan. Some species stretched over 30 meters from nose to tail and weighed 50 to 70 tons. Their necks alone could rival a city bus in length, sweeping from low ferns up into the canopy like living cranes. If they were alive today, every record book on largest land animal would have to be rewritten, and elephants would suddenly look like polite, mid-sized pets. Yet these giants were not lumbering statues. They were moving, breathing leaf-processing machines, walking, eating, growing, mating, and leaving behind tracks pressed deep into mud and a mountain of questions for modern paleontologists. To understand how they managed this, we have to rewind the planet to the Jurassic and Cretaceous periods. Back then, Earth was warmer than it is today. Ice caps were tiny or non-existent. Sea levels were higher, and the continents were arranged into strange shapes that would confuse any modern map reader. Vast regions were covered by forests and floodplains that stretched for hundreds of kilometers. Atmospheric CO2 levels were high, turning the world into a natural greenhouse and supercharging plant growth. Giant ferns, cycads, ancient conifers, and early flowering plants grew densely like pillars in a cathedral. Floods, fires, and volcanoes knocked them down. They simply grew back. For plant eaters, it was a near-endless salad buffet, spread from ground level all the way into the treetops. But a big buffet doesn't mean the food is rich. Evidence suggests that many plants of that time were low in protein, full of tough fiber, and much harder to digest than the vegetables we eat today. You could pack your stomach, but each kilogram of leaves didn't provide a lot of usable energy. In that world, being huge could actually be an advantage. The bigger the body, the bigger the stomach, and the longer the gut, so food could stay inside for hours or days, while microbes slowly broke down the fiber. Sauropods were, in effect, walking fermentation tanks. Their teeth worked more like rakes than scissors, stripping large mouthfuls of foliage. They did only minimal chewing and left most of the real work to the vast bacterial soup inside their bellies, which extracted every possible calorie from those stubborn leaves. Even that, though, is only part of the story. The real engineering magic lies in their bones and lungs. Many dinosaurs, especially sauropods and large predators, had bones filled with air spaces connected to the respiratory system. Vertebrae, ribs, and even parts of the hips were riddled with cavities invaded by air sacs. From the outside, the skeleton looks heavy and monumental. Inside, it works more like lightweight scaffolding. That design meant a sauropod of a given size weighed much less than a mammal of the same dimensions built with solid bones. Every step, every lift of that enormous neck cost less energy than you might think. The air sac system also acted like internal air conditioning, moving heat around and dumping excess warmth so the animal didn't overheat. Imagine a living skyscraper with its own built-in network of cooling vents, quietly humming away inside the ribs. There is another crucial factor that often gets overlooked: reproduction. Large mammals hit a hard limit because big babies usually mean long, risky pregnancies. If something happens to the mother, the entire investment disappears. Dinosaurs, including sauropods, played by different rules. They laid eggs, and lots of them. A single female could drop strings or clusters of eggs along her migration routes year after year. Each egg was small compared with her body, but the total number was huge. She never had to carry a heavy pregnancy for months, and she didn't risk everything on one or two offspring. Predators, floods, and droughts might destroy many clutches, yet enough hatchlings survived to keep the herds going. This scatter many small bets strategy lets sauropods grow enormous without being trapped by the slow, high-risk style of big mammals. Of course, being gigantic came with serious costs. A fully grown sauropod may have needed hundreds of kilograms of plant matter every day just to maintain its bulk. It probably spent most of its waking hours eating, stripping leaves from trees and shrubs anywhere it could reach. Staying in one spot for long was impossible. A herd could strip a patch of forest surprisingly quickly, so they kept moving like huge biological lawnmowers, constantly searching for the next patch of greenery. Their top speed was almost certainly lower than the dramatic chases shown in movies. Just turning around with that much mass took planning. A slip on mud or a fall near a slope could be genuinely dangerous. Getting back to its feet when you weigh as much as several buses stacked together is no simple task. It is also worth remembering that not every dinosaur was a walking tower block. Alongside the giants lived countless smaller species, some the size of turkeys or house cats, darting through the undergrowth and eating insects, seeds, and soft shoots. Their lives were quieter and less cinematic, but the giants around them were busy reshaping the stage for everyone. As herds pushed through forests, they knocked down trees and opened clearings for new plants. Their feeding and trampling changed river channels and the shape of wetlands. Everywhere they went, they dropped huge amounts of dung that fertilized the soil. In effect, sauropods were a free fleet of bulldozers and fertilizer trucks roaming the Jurassic and Cretaceous, unintentionally engineering the very valleys and floodplains that we now imagine them marching across. Here is the twist. Those same colossal bodies that dominated their world also helped clear the stage for our distant ancestors. When the asteroid struck near the end of the Cretaceous, the 70-ton mobile apartment blocks vanished. The ecological roles they filled, giant grazers, mega-poop producers, and prime targets for large predators, were suddenly vacant. Into that empty space stepped the mammals, which until then had mostly been small, nocturnal, and easy to ignore. Over millions of years, they expanded into the niches the dinosaurs left behind, evolving into large plant eaters, big carnivores, and eventually primates. Fast forward far enough, and you get us relatively small, two-legged mammals with oversized brains and a habit of turning ancient history into online videos. Seen from that angle, if sauropods had not grown so huge, had not occupied those VIP seats and then disappeared, the story of life might have unfolded very differently. Perhaps some other group would have taken over and built its own civilization. The voice talking to you today might not belong to a human at all, but to the distant descendant of some other lucky survivor of that ancient disaster. And this is where the tale of the giants stops feeling like distant trivia and starts sounding uncomfortably familiar. In dinosaur times, shifts in CO2 and climate were usually slow, stretched over hundreds of thousands or millions of years. Species had time at least sometimes to adapt, move, or fade away. Today, our own species is pushing greenhouse gases upwards so quickly that similar scale changes are being squeezed into a few centuries, or even decades. There will be no new class of super dinosaurs evolving fast enough to tidy up after us. The bill will arrive at the door of the ecosystems we depend on now, and at our own door as well. The fantasy of a lush green world full of giant animals is irresistible. It makes for art and spectacular films, but reality is harsher. Rapid shocks, rarely end with a beautiful wide shot and a fade to black. They end with extinctions, migrations, and long, messy recoveries written into rock layers and fossil bones. Sauropods show that size, power, and success are never guaranteed. For millions of years, they balanced anatomy, environment, and lifestyle so well that they became the greatest land animals the planet has ever seen. Yet when conditions shifted too fast, they vanished. We, much smaller but ambitious, are now the ones reshaping the world at high speed. The question is, which role we will play the latest overconfident giant that failed to adapt? Or the rare species that noticed the warning signs and chose to pull back in time?